I find a way to practice, and when I'm willing to be vulnerable, the other members realize they can too.
Are you ready to start?
Always.
Bob, are you ready to start?
I'm ready.
Welcome to the 5th episode of the District 7 Toastmasters Podmasters podcast. Our goal is to help Toastmasters learn how to develop the tools and the skills to explore their curiosity in this interesting medium in a fun and entertaining way. I would like to introduce, first, I will bring up my co-host is Bob Hall, who is also from District 7, and he is our co-host. We'll be asking questions for our special guest who I'm going to be introducing now. I would like to introduce past District Governor, Distinguished Toastmasters, Tom Hobbs, the man in the hat. Tom, how are you today?
Oh, just marvelous, marvelous. I'm sitting here in Denver and got our first bit of snow for the season. So, yeah.
Well, we have a number of questions we brought up following our pre-interview a couple of weeks ago. We had a lot of ideas because you inspire a lot of thoughts and ideas and stories. And I always like to ask a couple of questions at the beginning just to get to know who it is that we're talking about. And I'm going to start things off by passing things over to Bob.
Okay.
Would you like to ask the first question?
Well, as Ray said, we'd like to get to know you. We'd like to ask you an off-ball question right off the bat, something you're not prepared for. I was browsing the internet this morning, and I was on Etsy for some reason, and there's this game called something to do with these, like an IQ quiz. And one of the questions on it was, if you had to hide a giraffe from the government, how would you do it?
Well, the question is, if I had to hide a giraffe from the government, how would I do it?
Yes.
Well, one of the greatest places to hide almost anything from the government is on a dollar bill, because they hide so many other critters and things in there. If you get down to the engraving of it, yeah, there's all kinds of fun things hidden on the dollar bill. But most of the American money is some of the ugliest money in the world. If you go out to around the world, people have beautiful money. New Zealand has a penguin on it, plus a window you can look through. So there's some great things out there. So if I was going to hide a giraffe, I'd hide it in the engraving on a dollar bill.
You'd miniaturize it and make it.
Sure.
Brilliant. Miniaturize it. Yes.
Well, you're famous for dealing with props. When we talked about this, we know about this, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more. But talking about funny money, I'm Canadian, and we have this toonie. So talk about interesting looking money. But I want to find out a little bit about your Toastmasters journey specifically, because I imagine you've been at this for some time. Can you share when you joined Toastmasters, and can you remember for joining when you did?
Yes. Yes, Toastmasters has been very important in my life currently. It started way back about 2006, because for many years, as for my holidays, I'd get on cruise ships, and I'm a dancer on cruise ships. I dance with the little blue-haired ladies. And I'm hearing all these marvelous stories. And I wanted to come back and share them with other people. I didn't think my skills were good enough. I heard about Toastmasters. I joined, found my skills were a little better, but I've grown, and I'm now 12, 13, 14, 15 years later, I'm pretty darn good. I'm a professional storyteller because of Toastmasters. Leadership has come to me because of Toastmasters. I've went on to be the leader for the district. So I was district governor, they say, so I should put on my Irish hat or a British hat. And we had over 3,000 members in my district. So learning to lead volunteers, there was a lot of growth factor and a lot of oopses in there. And at this point in time, now I do a lot of mentoring around the world, thanks to Zoom and what we've been able to do here. I've spoken in New Zealand, via Zoom. That's like 3 o'clock in the morning to me. Various times like that, and get a visit with you guys on the which side? That side of the United States. So yeah, Toastmasters is good to me. One of the best things you can ever do in Toastmasters is put on a few youth leadership programs. Go up and help some young kids expand and realize that they are wanted as a leader. That's a snippet. And I suppose I could. Generally, I have one that says Toastmasters on it. Oh, here it is. There you go. There's a hat with Toastmasters on it.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah. And to answer that part there, you're probably going to ask us the man in a hat, where that came from.
Coming to it.
Yeah. Well, shall we do it now? Might as well.
No time like
Sure.
the present.
Yeah, heck, we like that was we were trying to figure out the best way of even asking the question. Talking about the man in the hat? We want to. What is the story of the man in the hat, Tom? This is when I think of the man in the hat, my dyslexic brain does the Dr. Seuss thing, and it rhymes with, of course, a different hat. But how did you get the name the man in the hat?
It goes back to kids. Kids really influenced me in a big way all my life. Many years ago, I mentioned I was on cruise ships. I happened to end up in Ecuador, South America, and that's where I bought my first Panama style hat. Panama hats like these, okay? And they are made in Ecuador, not Panama, as opposed to what a famed American president took credit for building a canal, wearing a hat. He told him we got it in Panama. Actually got it from Ecuador. So I brought him back and I started using that and speaking about Panama and my trips down to Antarctica and South America. And my fellow Toastmasters loved it. So I continued to wear that hat when I spoke. Then I was speaking for a volunteer organization on financial advising called Junior Achievement, where they put us in classrooms in schools. And I was at a very large high school in metropolitan Denver, Colorado. And two boys saw me in the hallway and they pointed at me. Hey, there goes that guy from that first period, that financial guy, the man in the hat. My marketing brain kicked in. And I've been known as the man in a hat ever since. My website, themaninthehat.net, my business cards. If I'm doing a training program, I always work acronyms like HATN, so hat. And I have over 100 real hats from around the
You're a
world.
man who wears many hats.
Yeah.
That's for sure. In fact, when you pulled your hat off, I noticed you had another hat underneath it.
Sometimes they're not as
Look
big
at
as that. That's a fun
man
little
in the
stick.
hat in the hat.
I had a friend give me a miniature hat, and it was cool. So every once in a while, I'll pull that little trick. But
You've
it
been
does
a member of
grow the hair, though.
Toastmasters. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. You've been a member of Toastmasters for how long now?
2006 till present.
2006, but that's 17 years. And you keep coming back to Toastmasters. You know, for me, Toastmasters is like a gym membership. You know, you got to keep exercising every day, building those speaking muscles. What brings you back to Toastmasters after 17 years? I haven't been a member that long. 17 years, you keep coming back. What drives you? Did you have like an aha moment, or that said, I've got to keep coming back and doing this?
Well, it's a safe environment. Toastmasters is a safe environment to practice, to screw up and fail right here before I step out in front of the important clients to me, which more often are paid, or they're in front of a group of students who are very important to me. So I want to be good for them. I'm not so concerned about being good in Toastmasters. So I'll stretch and I'll try things here, and people go, that was kind of goofy, Tom, but I'll do it in my clubs. And I'm a member of several clubs that are specialtyized. So if I'm working on entrepreneurial items or a speech, my entrepreneur club, boom. My professional rewind that one. If it's professional presenters, Toastmasters, I'm practicing a long 20-minute to a 50-minute keynote and getting feedback at that point for that club. My Find Your Funny Toastmasters, find your funny toast. Well, that's where I'm release my smart aleck little brother. So I find a way to practice, and when I'm willing to be vulnerable, the other members realize they can too. And I get a lot of feedback thanking me for that. So screwing up helps others.
Well, you do this for a living, don't you? I mean, it's not just being a Toastmaster week after week after week. You've got your website, you've got a business there. You teach professionals how to do this.
Well, I've had great mentors in Toastmasters, and because of them, I've met great mentors in the professional speaking arena, so National Speakers Association, and got mentors there.
If you had to single one of them out, who would that be?
Go ahead, and professional storytellers.
Yeah, if you had to single one out, who would you single out as being influential in your life?
Oh, for the business of speaking is definitely Darren LaCroix, world champion Darren LaCroix. And for the heart of Toastmasters, Mark Brown. Man, he is the soul, and I'm so honored to call them both friends and mentors. Yeah.
Question for you. Well, two questions related to Darren LaCroix, since he's a personal friend of yours. Did you make him laugh?
Well, yes. Many years ago, and almost put in there on purpose, that was called a dramatic pause. I was in a training that Darren put on. We were in Las Vegas. That's where he operates it from. And at the end of the training, the 4-day training, he had one of these little holistic circles where you stand around and then you have a speaking stick that you'd pass, and it's kind of cosmic woo woo woo. Yeah. It was cool and nice. But he turned to me as part of a personal feedback, and he just looked at me and says, "You bother me. You smile all the time." And I agreed. I did, because I had fun. I was learning. I was a great time, a great place to be there. And any of my worries I had back at home, I could leave there. But I do like to do that. And yeah, I made him smile because I smiled all the time. And to this day, he still refers to that. And I'm an ongoing member of his programs. And I attended a big university meeting. He calls it Stage Time University, called Game Changers. And we'll meet in March in Vegas for 4 days and do it again. And I always get at least one nugget that makes it worth all my time and my finances to go. Makes me a better professional speaker, trainer, MC, storyteller, nut. I can keep layering.
Nut. I think the nut is the most apropos description that one can carry forward on your own. I identify with that myself quite, because no matter how long I've been in Toastmasters, I'm constantly learning. I keep running into people that know more than me, which is fine. And they all observe and see things that I didn't see, which is great. Perfect. It helps me improve all of the time. Now, when I think of practical jokes and I hear about practical jokes, I think you are a practical joker. You did mention that you do some practical jokes as a part of your thing. I always think of practical jokers and George Clooney basically writing memos for his co-stars to send to other co-stars. And really, have you done practical jokes that are embarrassing to somebody before?
Practical jokes are dangerous, for one. I am a little brother. I'm a smart aleck little brother, and that was a challenge. My two older brothers and sister, the way I remember it, they picked on me because I was the youngest and I got away with things that they didn't. but they would be honoring, like, take the cereal box that was in the bottom shelf of the kitchen and move it all the way to the top shelf. So I had to climb on the shelves to get to it. That actually worked out good for me for one of my businesses I have. I do a lot of climbing. But practical jokes, my father was a master at that, and he got in trouble a few times for doing that. I've been pretty good at not getting in trouble, but I've had many a girlfriend over the years who said, that's enough. So I've learned to avoid practical jokes, but look for the observational humor side of it and not let somebody else get the butt of the joke. I'd rather me do the pratfall.
You mentioned something kind of by the side there in your response about climbing as being a part of another business enterprise of yours. And I think I know where you're going with that. So in the off season, when you're not on cruise ships and you're not entertaining people and you're not teaching people businesses, what do you do to make a little extra money on the side? Maybe a lot of money on the side.
Yeah, a lot of money. I mean, I'm going to step right over here. I'll help you out here. This I kind of have hanging on my wall. These are old antique lights known as Christmas lights, holiday lighting. And originally, I'm a trained aircraft mechanic. I worked on airplanes for years for Old Continental Airlines, Old Frontier Airlines in Denver. But I left there in about 1994 I started a maintenance company, helping people repair homes, special projects. But I had a little lady look at me and she goes, hey, you got ladders and a helper. I don't want my husband to fall and break another hip. Will you help us put our Christmas lights up? So I did. Next year I came back and helped her and her neighbors. 29 years later, I'm still putting Christmas lights up for people, marketing lights for restaurants and associations, and pretty much October through January, I've tightened it up. That's where I work for about 90% of my income. And then
of course, if you put them up, you got to take them down too, right?
Oh yeah, that's why January is there, and it works. Then it affords me to have a good cash flow for that period of time. The rest of the year, yeah, I do a lot more hustling. I do more MC work, speaking and training. I love to travel, so I can incorporate that back in. Yeah, Christmas lights. It's pretty crazy to say, but you can generate 6 figures of business in about 8 weeks hanging Christmas lights.
Wow. Okay, sign me up. Hey, I just saw a hat change a second ago there. I think Ray's got a question for you.
Here, I'll change one with you. There. Go to Australia now. Karuba.
I'll put it on properly. This is my not a fedora. It's I don't remember where I got this hat, but I was thinking specifically about mentoring because I want to hear a story. Without naming names, can you tell us a story about someone you helped who found their funny, maybe from your Find Your Funny Toastmasters Club or something, mentoring in that world? Somebody that didn't expect that they, like me, who's not funny.
We're all mentors, in my opinion, because people see us no matter where we are. Our actions are there. And you mentioned Find Your Funny Toastmasters, which is a club that we started about 3 years ago, right after the pandemic started. That's my term, pandemic. You can steal it. And it's a virtual, all online club. And we've managed to get people to join from Australia and the United States, Canada as well. And to me, some of the greatest growth I've seen in people were those that were second language people. They weren't speaking American. And of course, American is a terrible language. We're a bunch of lazy people. English is more proper. And we have numerous people who are second language and they go, I don't think I'm funny because of the style of Americans' humor. And yet I found so many were they look at things 3 degrees up, and it is funny. So a friend, I call him a friend now, Mr. Koki Kuba. Koki is Japanese, native Japanese, but he moved to the United States, lives in Florida, married a beautiful young lady, has a family. And with a little guidance and helping him look at things just a little bit off, because that's what, just say what you're seeing. He did an icebreaker speech, which is an introduction speech. And he started off saying, I speak 3 languages. That got our attention. He says, I speak Japanese, I speak Google Translate, and accrual accounting. And he is a phenomenal accountant. Now, that's his trade. But it has caught all of us off guard. The rule of 3 for humor, and it works marvelous. So I consider Koki honored as a mentee to me, and I've mentored him. We've worked together. He's taken MC workshops from me. And he is one funny guy, because he just looks at things like, in Japan, we would say it this way. My wife from Puerto Rico would say it this way. We're an American, so we'll do it this way. Yeah, so now Koki Kuba, I'm honored to say he's a good man, good friend, and man, hire him to help do your finances or do a speech.
Well, I, as somebody who has always struggled to be funny myself, I can certainly look up to that kind of a mentor story. I mean, yesterday I turned around in my elevator. There was 4 other people in my elevator, and I said, now that we're all here, and everybody else in the elevator just broke out laughing. So for me, I'm funny in moments. Yes. And they inspire me in just moments. And it's really just about it, trusting the inspiration is when it happens for me. I haven't practiced it that way yet, but I see Bob's got a new hat on.
Playing off of what you were talking about there, finding you funny. I spent some time on the Pacific Crest Trail this year. I took a hike. I picked this hat up at Cradle Lake. It says, take a hike. It's got a double meaning, really, you know.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I used this in an interview once. The guy was interviewing me. He said, hey, tell me a little bit about your experience. And I said, like, if somebody says you're too old or too young, or you're the wrong gender, the wrong ethnicity, tell them to take a hike. Mm-hmm. If you can find you're funny in stressful situations, you're better off. So one of the things that we struggle with in Toastmasters is there's just a small number of people doing a lot of work. Those are the people who are listening to these podcasts. They're looking for wisdom from experienced Toastmasters with 17 years of experience. What message would you tell people to keep us from burning the toast, so to speak?
Well, burnt toast, often we're referred to that as going over time if you have a time structure. And Toastmasters is a little over the top about your time in Toastmasters. In the real world, you need to respect that time for the event that you're at, the coordinator. Often I'll show up at a speaking gig and they'll tell me that, yeah, you've got 40 minutes. Oh, wait a minute. No, Leon's getting an award today. You got 29 minutes. Oh, shooting Sharon's here. Oh, you got 17 minutes. What can you do? Well, because of being trained with Toastmasters and awareness of time and burnt toast, if you go over, you learn to cut things out, but leave the important facts in, and that close, a good call to action in. And I've learned to do that.
More in terms of leadership, not the speaking aspect of it, but the leadership aspect. People get overloaded with leadership tasks. To maintain a sense of humor.
To minimize that, incorporate humor. I just did a presentation yesterday for the summit to District 84 on leading with humor. And I encourage everyone, what is it that makes you smile? What kind of humor makes you smile? It might be, to me, it was George Carlin, his observational humor, fun with words, like occasional irregularity. And then I would incorporate that when I start leadership. And when I was district governor, I give this to trios or leaders in districts, I would reach out to people and empower them and say, I'm going to support you. You make the best choice and decisions you can at this time. And I'm going to support you with 27.5 gallons of enthusiasm. That was enough twisted words to make them go, I don't know what you said, but I heard you said you're going to support me. And to this day, I still have people who were either area governors or division governors at the time who come back to me and still remember, yeah, Tom, yeah, I got 27.5 gallons of enthusiasm. Where shall we take it? And that little concept, and I don't know where it came from. I've used that back then, and it really empowered a lot of people, knowing that as long as they're making the best choices with what information they had at the time, I would continue to support them. And it's worked, I think.
Enthusiasm makes a difference.
Totally does. So I'm going to change my hat again real quick. So I've got my sleepy cat hat, which means I'm approaching the end of our list of questions that we had put together for you. And I would like to ask, because that last question was actually yes, there's the sleepy cat.
Yeah,
Sleepy cat. So that last question was a variation of a question that was provided by the District 7 Voices co-editor, Leela Sieber. And what she was asking about was dealing with burnout for volunteers and who were burning out for just basically overloading themselves with volunteer roles, and just having that support is a super important question, or is a super important factor in avoiding burnout. Now, I'm going to ask you to provide a question for our next guest, and it's not going to be included in today's recording, so I'm going to do a little clap just because I can find it in the video easily. What is a question you would have for another Toastmaster? Don't know anything about them, don't know anything about what their background is, if they're new, if they've been around forever, what it is that they're doing. But what is a question that Tom Hobbs would ask another Toastmaster who's in an interview like this? Now, there's one question I always finish off, because this has been a really entertaining interview, and I feel like I've learned a lot about you, and yes, you didn't show me the rubber chicken yet.
Yeah, rubber chicken. He's a good personal friend. You can do a lot of therapy with your rubber chicken. So
it's true. Never talks back, doesn't argue. Kind of just flops around. Hey, Bob, before I ask my last question, do you have any other questions that you wanted to ask before closing up?
I got on your website earlier today. I was browsing around, and you've got a lot of good material out there. Anything? You're an author. You've written books. If you were to point somebody to one of those books, which one would it be?
Here's a trick. I wrote a tips book, and you can do it too. It's called The Speaker's Toolbox, many years ago. 103 tips that you can do as a speaker presenter to be better, simple. And it's anywhere from a sentence to 3 sentences long for each one. Nothing crazy. But then here's the trick for you professionals to build upon it. Every audience is a different niche. This is print on demand. So when they need it, they use it. So I was asked to speak for a group of financial advisors. So I did. So I took and wrote the same book. The information's the same, but they're not speakers. They're financial presenters. So I changed the title to match their niche. Then I was asked to speak for the group of professional storytellers. Same book. You're getting the theory. Entrepreneurs, same book. You get in the theory, print on demand. You can do that. You know 100 things about something. Be that expert. Because the world wants to learn from experts.
One of the underlying things that I saw on your website was simplicity. Keep it simple. Speaking with ease. That seems to be like an underlying theme that goes through some of your material there. What does that mean? Unpack that for us, will you?
Ultimately, it means to speak in story format. We learn, we think, humans do in storyline. You have a character who has a goal, who has a conflict or a barrier. They have a mentor or hero who helps make a change. Then there's a resolution. And when you think in that way, you know what's going to come up next. You'll remember your presentation. When you build a training, if you'll think it that way, people get it. They know what's coming up next. It will stick with them. And it keeps it simple. Now, you can always expand each area, but if you think in the storyline, you can do that. And probably the easiest way of showing that is this book here. Yeah, here, there you go. He's learning.
Look at that.
Say, when
I
I
got
get
an
on,
education today. Check it out.
when I get on an airplane, you know, we all should have room for our elbows. And if I'm sitting there and I get the middle seat, you know what? I want room for my elbows. So I read a book. This is the book I set down in front of everybody. And that's what I do. How to pick pockets for fun and profit. Just lay it out there and then make sure you got a few pages that are, you know, dog-eared, you know, and some stickers in there so they know you've been using it. That by itself can create some space for you. And those kind of ideas I've learned from a fellow mentor, professional speaker, Tim Gard. Tim Gard. And he's the only man I know other than me who carries rubber chickens around. And he actually has them hanging out of his carry-on bag. Tim Gard, amazing humorist, not a comedian, humorist. And that's really where I'm at. I don't think of myself as a comic in any way. I'm just smart aleck little brother, and I look for the humor in everything I can.
Well, now leaning up to what is next for the man in the hat. What is next for you? What is the next thing that is going to be on the billboards out in the front of the building for Tom Hobbs?
It's already begun. My next bigger step. I've got a whole bunch of years as an entrepreneur, 30 plus officially, and probably my first business started in about 1980. And now we're finding that many entrepreneurs out there with a business are thinking they're doing well, and all of a sudden they're running into a barrier and they're not getting past a certain barrier. And I've teamed up. We have a company now where a fellow man named Steve Replin and I run a consortium of other entrepreneurs that we can come in and be guides, successful guides for you as an entrepreneur, your business, to get over humps, make that big challenge in that big direction. And because of our experience of both in businesses for me and my multiple styles, Steve with his legal and accounting styles, and a consortium of others, we can draw the right answer. And as a speaker and trainer that we've practiced in Toastmasters, I can deliver that message and put it in a training format that sticks, and they can truly make a big difference. And I'm very excited about offering that to more people around the world because, hey, I can travel to Singapore again and help somebody there, just like I could do in Denver or Vancouver. Haven't been to where? Austria yet. I had to go to Austria, I guess.
Hi, now I got the voice in my head from Arnold. It's not something. Is it terrible? Tom, I want to thank you for being here for today's episode, for episode 5 of the Podmasters podcast. I want to thank Bob for being an excellent co-host and helping helping turn this into an interesting podcast. And I'll look forward to seeing the man in the hat out in the world.
That's it. Invite me to a conference, invite me to a training, pay me. That's even better. And we'll get some results. And only do it if you want to have some fun. Because if I can't have fun, why be there? And the two of you, obviously, I think we could sit down and have a nice cool drink anywhere and have a lot of fun.
And I'm getting thirsty. My hat's off to you. Just as I'm finishing up the editing on this interview, I want to thank everybody for watching all the way to the end. Podmasters is a Toastmasters club that hasn't chartered yet, is getting close to chartering. And what we do is we support people who want to create a podcast, who want to understand all of the technical issues behind setting up a podcast or a YouTube channel. And we haven't chartered yet, so we meet the first and third Sundays of each month. The email address is below. If you want to drop into our club, reach out and we will connect you with the link for that meeting.